Hello and welcome back to the Monkeycast podcast. It's episode 10. Woo! We reached it. I'm your host Ethan with my co-hosts Tomas and Aaron. And with us today we have two very special guests. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm special guest number 1. My name is Adrian.
Hi, I'm the second special guest. My name is Enrico.
Cool. And today we'll be discussing topics related to Sustainable Development Goal number 14, which is life below water.
So, how would you guys like to start?
Let's say coral bleaching. What do you think?
So to start off, I'd like to give the fact that there's a 39% decrease in marine life over the past 40 years. This has been directly attributed to overfishing.
Well, yeah,
Okay, so we're talking about coral bleaching. So, we know that coral bleaching is directly connected to climate change with the overheating of our waters, especially in shallow areas. This is what causes corals to
bleach
or turn to their white color that they're known for when they're dead.
The chemical emissions that we produce cause, and it's very, very, very harmful. I think we have to curb our chemical emissions to stop coral bleaching. It's really one of the most urgent problems that we have right now.
Yeah.
So, if you don't know how coral bleaching occurs, let me explain it to you. So, when greenhouse gases get trapped within the ozone layer, they block the sun's rays to get back out. Therefore, the heat gets trapped within our Earth, and as more greenhouse gases get produced by us, the hotter our Earth becomes.
Having seen the Great Barrier Reef, I really think it's a travesty that it's going down this downhill. In fact, I think I've heard a statistic that 70% of all fisheries are overfished right now.
Actually, it's not just the Great Barrier Reef, but almost half of the world's corals over half actually are near threatened to critically endangered.
That's terrible. Especially in the
I'm not
Philippines.
so sure if you guys know this, but there's the oceans contain 38,000 gigatons of carbon, and it's through a process called carbon sequestration.
Yeah, and it's called marine life can actually stop this. I'm pretty sure.
But the thing is,
They lock it away in the sea.
Yeah, but the thing is, we'd have to give the sea time to rest and rebuild itself. After all, it's a really
fragile
ecosystem.
Actually, speaking of marine life, why don't we discuss overfishing? Well, we briefly talked about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Actually, if we use sustainable sources, overfishing, people who use sustainable sources have made overfishing drop by 60% since 2000, according to the International Defense Fund.
Drop?
And the way to determine what type of fish to catch is to find the approved guidelines for the length and weight. It ensures that they're caught at an acceptable age, and also to get the sourcing of where they're caught. So if they're caught in a very high risk area, it's not very good.
So overfishing is a big problem everywhere, not just wherever it may be. So
yeah, not just in
it's an issue here too.
Okay, so I think there was a fact stated. If you guys watch Seaspiracy, there was this fact stated about.
I remember watching that one.
How tuna populations have declined, and there's about 2% of them left in the world due to such a big prize on, especially bluefin tuna. But so, as human demand increase, it's become a really big problem with all fish stocks. And eventually, if we go at this rate, there won't be much fish left in the ocean for us to eat.
especially in the
I
Philippines.
I think with all
Yeah.
of the sources, like with all this with all this sources we have, I think we should really try to conserve them.
Yeah, and the thing is with fish, it's kind of different from say deforestation. I mean, it's like it's the same concept, but the thing
There's a
is you
lot
can
more
always
There's
Yeah,
a lot
there
more
is.
collateral damage.
I agree.
I
So
agree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
you can always like plant trees.
yeah, conservation efforts for trees may be a bit quicker, although it takes long for trees to grow. When it comes to marine life and the way the ocean works, we can't really do much to intervene, but instead just give it time and let it rest for it to build itself. Because after all, it's its own ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not always about the ecosystem. Like, especially in the Philippines, commercial fishing fleets empty the world's seas. It's a problem for the locals who depend on the fish for survival and for their livelihoods.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that
Like with
all the sources we have, it's worth waiting a couple of months.
for the fish to grow.
Couple months.
So let's talk about unsustainable fisheries, or how unsustainable fishing processes, such as
Dynamite
Yeah.
fishing.
dynamite fishing, drift nets, and how
Bycatch.
they involve a lot of bycatch.
Oh yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't know what drift nets are basically really, really long lines of net that go down the sea floor up to the surface, and they basically drift with the ocean's current. But its process is to get fish entangled within the net to be able to catch them. But the thing is with this process, although it may be efficient, it's really unsustainable because it has a lot of bycatch, including marine mammals, marine reptiles such as turtles, and a lot of other fish, even though that may not be their certain goal of what to catch.
Given that we know this is so bad, what can we do to fix it?
Yeah.
Like,
Wait.
what would be a good
First, we
method?
should probably talk about what is the most infamous types of blast fishing or dynamite fishing.
I think it's a really common procedure here in the Philippines.
Yeah, it's outlawed in most of the world, but it's still used in Southeast Asia a lot. Around 70,000 fishermen still use this practice, apparently. And you can see why
That's a lot.
it's destructive, because, you're literally putting dynamite
It's
into
very
the water.
impractical. Their goal is to catch fish, but
But it's
just
like-
because dynamite could do it faster doesn't mean that it has other impacts. It affects everything within its radius, which is quite large given that it's dynamite.
I think that the best method of fishing is done with rods. Like overall, like you have the almost no bycatch because you can just throw them back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the point of like dynamite fishing, drift netting, it's for surplus because you need a lot.
For like commercial fishing and like canned fish. That's what you call it, right? Yeah, you need a lot.
Although, many people located in the Philippines depend on fish and marine life for their livelihood, not just by selling fish, but through tourism. I mean, the Philippines is notorious for having some of the best corals in the world and coral reefs in the world due to them being in the coral triangle, which locates between us, Malaysia, and Indonesia.
Right, that's a thing.
That's true, though, but haven't we, well, at least until recently, haven't we gotten along with traditional fishing methods for a long time? Like,
Yeah, but with
So,
increasing demand, like the population's
yeah.
going up a lot, and we have to find, I guess, more sustainable methods.
I think
Yeah.
so I guess
Well, I mean, I think the real solution, it was like what that documentary said, right? Seaspiracy or whatever. Because, like, the real solution is to just stop eating fish, right? Because
That might be hard though.
it's hard,
because
but
I
like
think it's
lessen it as much as possible. Because like,
discourage consumption of certain
But
fishes.
then
Yeah.
that's the thing. When you're discouraging one different type of food, then they'll have to move on to another one, which is beef. It has as bad impacts as overfishing and everything because with an increased demand of beef and other farm animals such as pigs and chickens, that they produce more methane. They'll need space, so by creating space, they burn down trees.
True.
true, yeah. It's hard.
I
It's
think
still
that the
just
best
hard.
method is to find a sustainable way to create fish, and maybe I guess, focus on a more vegetable-based diet.
hmm,
Yeah, but you don't get the same amount of like nutrients. I mean, you get like there's like obviously you get vitamins and
I mean, it's hard to
Yeah.
cater for everybody else.
I mean, a possible like sort of solution for this would be increasing like farmed fish, but that's
I think farm fish also sees increased amounts of mercury compared to wild caught fish. I mean, it's a much better solution than going into our oceans and taking as much as we need. I mean, of course,
yeah.
we can't. The ocean can't sustain that amount.
I've heard like fish farms are actually more unsustainable because of like you need to feed all the fish. Or
I've
something.
heard that fish farms are like they're a bit more sustainable because like if you hunt wild fish, you're gonna reduce the population, and and if you catch them early, they won't be able to reproduce.
Yeah.
Another
Yes, sir.
benefit is that farmed fish allow the farmers to control the environment in which the fish exist. So, they can. I guess they could try to simulate a natural environment, or they could feed them, I don't know, nutrients.
Yes,
and
but
stuff.
I guess the best or true solution is not getting more than we need, and also to enjoy what we have, to act sustainably when it comes to catching fish. I mean, what defines sustainable fishing? It's more of just getting what you need, not more, and also making sure that you leave a gap between when you catch them and when you get your next catch in order to population to slightly regrow.
That's
Yeah.
true.
That makes sense.
I agree. So as I said a while ago, I think one of the most important factors is making sure that the young fish aren't caught, and you should only catch them at a sustainable age and size. Like, because even if you catch the young fish, the yield will still be, I guess, insufficient. It's still suboptimal. So it not only affects the fishermen's it not only affects their income, but like it can affect it can affect the population of fish as well.
Actually, speaking of the population of fish, and this might also be contributing to the dangers of, like, contributing to overfishing in some way by, lessening the amount of fish in the ocean, is pollution. Plastic pollution and other things that get dumped into the ocean.
Yeah, like
I mean,
isn't the leading cause of death right now like pollution for
although
marine
it isn't as big of a threat as overfishing, it still does
I
affect.
think that
Yeah.
the effects of overfishing, like, they're not directly visible, but then the effect that they can have on people, it's still really major.
Mm.
I mean, compared to, media shows more of plastic pollution and trash being dumped into our ocean than really the effects of overfishing because with overfishing, as Aaron said, there's not as noticeable changes. They just disappear. But the thing is, with plastic pollution, you see them suffering because there may be like a plastic ring choked around its neck or something like that.
Yeah, or
And
they
then something
ingest
else to bring up.
something.
Something else that's important is education of the fishermen. Because if they don't know that they're meant to be catching in a certain way, they're gonna go back to using dynamite fishing. They're gonna go back to using all these really not very sustainable ways to fish, and that's not very good for the environment. So I think the main aspect that we should focus on is education, because like younger fishermen, they'll only know these methods. They won't know the methods of the past, and therefore they can make changes on the way they fish.
Oh, and
I
Yeah,
think
just
raising
awareness is really
awareness.
important.
And just add one more thing to the list of dangers of overfishing. The more you overfish, the more likely it'll be that you get some fish with like plastic microparticles in it, and that ends up
In
and
your
you end up
stomach.
eating it,
Yeah.
and that's not good for you. So
Indeed, it's-
yeah. So awareness is what we can do here.
I mean, a way we can take example is from Palau. I mean, they've done a great way to manage their coral reefs. Their fishermen are really educated. They know what's right, what's wrong, and the government has done a really well job of enforcing these rules to make sure that everybody's safe, the coral reef's safe, and that they can live in like a sort of harmonic peace.
Mm.
Yeah. So well, I think that something else we have to discuss is the shark fin industry it's very harmful. I think that misinformed people are the main cause of this. So that's also something that we should focus on. Again, education is the most important aspect of this. If you educate people, they will know how to fish, they'll know how to do certain things, and yes, yeah, it's much better.
I mean,
Yeah.
the demand for shark fin is really large in Asia. It's a delicacy. It's supposed to have these.
Have you
medicinal
ever
property.
tried? Have you ever tried shark fin?
A symbol of wealth, even.
I guess.
Actually, it is. It's
Yeah.
simple.
I've
What's
heard
worse
that.
They
is
came out
there's
as the
no.
whale meat, especially in Japan. I mean,
I think that
when you talk about whale hunting, you think of maybe the Faroe Islands and their grind, where once a year they kill whales for the inhabitants to eat. But the thing is, I don't believe that it's such a threat. They've been doing this as a tradition that's been carried on for hundreds, if not thousands of years, whereas there's been commercial killing of whales and dolphins within Japan. Or one
I think
reason
that-
being
yeah.
one reason being dolphins and them called sort of like pesticides killing the fish. But I mean, all it really does is maintain the food
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really
And
think
what's
that
worse about the shark fin industry is that they take any shark, regardless of species or size, and it's really, really not good for the population.
I think that it's about also what shark you get. Because if you're harvesting fins from a great white, that's obviously very harmful.
Yeah, they're.
Yeah, they're
I
apex
think all
predators.
All
Moving them
sharks
from
have
the
their niche in nature. So any kind of shark being
once
taken
we
has
reach the
effects.
once we reach the point of commercialization of certain things, it's
Practices.
really like tips it over the edge.
Yeah. Goes for anything,
So-
honestly.
We'd like to encourage our viewers to shop and to an extent eat sustainably.
Yeah, try your
And
best.
try your
you know.
best to take care of the
and
environment.
try to spread awareness as well,
Yes,
as we've
yes.
said
And-
many times before.
Yeah.
And on that note, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
you.
Thank you,
We'll
and-
see you next time. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube
Make sure to
channel.
subscribe.